It appears that Colorado voters are having some regrets. It appears that Representative Lauren Boebert's clownish antics are an embarrassment to Congress. And again, that's not just me saying that. That is her. That is some of her voters, at least according to a report from Politico. The actions of Representative Lauren Boebert since she has been in Congress are turning off voters in one of the largest, most important cities in her district, creating a groundswell to defeat her in the 2022 midterm election. So now Politico, understand Politico's establishment, and sometimes they do not have their pulse on the people. So I'm gonna go through this article, and the people that they've got on record. Interesting, okay, and we're gonna read through that, and we're gonna see whether or not this is indicative of a larger trend of Lauren Boebert losing her support. So now, Politico's Jennifer Oldham reports that the city of Pueblo could hold the key to whether Boebert is returned to Congress. And according to a report, among some of the voters in Pueblo, the largest and most politically unpredictable city in Boebert's vast district, there is a growing sense of exasperation with the freshman representative not yet 6 months into her tenure. We've only had 6 months of Lauren Boebert. Good Lord. What have we done? What did you do, Colorado? What is wrong with you? All right. Anyway, now to be fair, as I said, one of the people that is quoted in this article is running for Congress against Lauren Boebert. So I want to keep that in mind. The person that's running is Saul Sandoval. Now he says, "quote When I think of Lauren Boebert, I think of that expression, all hat and no cattle." And of course, it's like one of those well-known, Southern kind of like expressions that you hear, like people, especially in Texas. All right. One of those conservative sayings that you hear, oh, it's all hat and no cattle. I'm going to tell you what. All right, well, oh, sure. Okay, I'm sure that does very well down there in Colorado. But he explained that when she had the opportunity to support stimulus funding, she chose Donald Trump over us. It's very frustrating. No, that's actually a pretty good point because look, the stimulus funding, it's that thing that was actually incredibly popular among all demographic groups, yet got no Republican votes. None, not a one. However, 2/3 of voters supported the $1.9 trillion package. Individual elements such as the $1,400 direct payments, the stimulus checks to individuals were even more popular, and still, you had no Republican votes. None. Now, interestingly enough, since it was so popular, you had a lot of Republicans that actually tried to take credit. In fact, Representative Nicole Malliotakis of New York had issued a press release celebrating the more than $3.7 million from the package that went to community health centers in her district. She called it one of her achievements. She even said she prided herself on, quote, bringing federal funding to the district and back into the pockets of taxpayers. That money, of course, she had nothing to do with getting that money. In fact, she voted against it. That came from Biden's stimulus bill that she was against, that she didn't vote for. Oops. Really? But it gets worse. Madison Cawthorn also pointed to the millions of dollars back in March in healthcare grants allocated to the districts on social media, saying he was proud to see taxpayer dollars returning to his district. Now, of course, once again, Madison Cawthorn voted against the bill that redirected that money to his districts. There's more. Representative Alex Mooney of West Virginia issued a news release to promote the more than $41 million spread across 12 different healthcare centers in his district. He said, I am glad that this funding has been secured. Yeah, well, not at all with your help, dickhead. You did nothing You voted against the bill. And then you're like, oh, look at this wonderful bill that I voted against. I mean, I didn't mention that I'd voted against it, but look at what I did for the community. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. The gall of these people, they are all disingenuous pieces of crap. If you're a voter, and this is what they, by the way, what they depend on. They depend on you not paying attention to what they do. Only what they say, not what they do. Whereas, of course, you should pay attention to what they do, their actions, because they're politicians, they lie. The real thing that you should see as a metric is what they do and what they try to do and what they stand up for. Okay? And so this person, these politicians didn't stand up at all. They're like, no, we're not interested in voting for this package. In fact, we would filibuster it if we didn't use budget reconciliation. Complete and total hypocrisy. So now if you're a voter, as I said, and you like these policy positions, you got to ask yourself, well, why would my representative that I sent to Congress vote against the stuff that I like and expect for me to vote for them again? It's a good question, right? And so in that position, why would you not be disappointed that your elected representatives are not representing you? And so now there's another disappointment coming for conservatives, and that's in Biden's infrastructure plan. So now that plan has a lot of things that people want. I don't think it goes far enough. I'm a leftist, but if we get it passed, well, that would be fantastic. Now, of course, we're not going to get it passed. Very unlikely now, because Joe Manchin won't blow up the filibuster. In fact, Kyrsten Sinema won't blow up the filibuster. We know Joe Manchin is basically bought and paid for by the Koch network, who was giving him talking points and running ads in West Virginia, telling him, oh, don't do the liberal agenda. We can do something bipartisan, which, of course, is never going to happen. And so there you go. Republicans, as I said, they're going to filibuster it. It's not going to pass. And yet, Republican voters do want these things that are in this bill. Again, another thing that is incredibly popular that they are going to be against and are already against. So now there's another Republican voter, Charles Perko. Now, Charles Perko is interesting because he's a local union leader. So now you might think unions, Democrats. Not necessarily. There's actually a lot of unions that are pro-Republican. I don't understand how. And, there are a lot of unions that are, of course, pro-pipeline. Keystone XL just recently got shut down. It's gone. The company says we're abandoning the project. A big win for environmentalists, right? A lot of unions were in favor of that. A lot of unions were in favor of Dakota Access because it does mean jobs. And so union doesn't necessarily mean Democrats. That said, I'm still a pro-union guy. I think that, unions, without unions, you've seen a degradation in pay, a lag in pay and benefits. And I think we need much, much more labor representation. That said, he tried to talk to, Mr. Perko actually tried to talk to Lauren Boebert about his concerns. Like, hey, I'm a voter, I'm a constituent. Why are you against infrastructure? Well, apparently, she won't talk to him. And whenever he goes to her office, it's closed. So she's basically hiding in the bunker. Now, there's a reason why, in my opinion. It's because I think she's only in office to own the libs. She was never really a serious politician, never really a serious person to begin with. Lauren Boebert's a clown. And she only went into office, along with Marjorie Taylor Greene, to own the libs. And that's really it. Now, one of the key parts, Perko explains, of Biden's infrastructure plan, why he supports it, is the proposed Amtrak expansion, which, of course, would create jobs in the region. That's good. I support that. Of course, here you would have more public transportation, as well as more good-paying union jobs. Well, that's great for the district. Actually good politically for Biden and the Democrats, And you can see, of course, why the Republicans would be against it. But he says, if we could just get that part of infrastructure passed, well, that would be a business that would keep us in jobs for many years. Again, good paying union jobs. And she's against that. But hey, so far, we've only heard from her primary opponent and a union guy. Obviously, not part of her rapid base, right? Not part of the people that actually put her to office, right? Right? Well, okay, let's go to Gus Garcia, somebody who actually admits, yes, I voted for her in 2020. Here's what he said. Quote, I thought Lauren would be a great representative for small business owners because she owns a small business and she came from a humble lifestyle. Now, remember, I believe her business was one where she wouldn't allow Muslims in. Was she that person that was like, no Muslims in my restaurant? And then had a whole bunch of violations? I don't know for sure. I don't quite remember. There's so many ghouls to keep track of here. So many ghouls. But all right. I hate this. I really do. I hate the idea that if you elect a business person, that somehow makes them good at government. No, owning a small business does not make you a good public servant. No, they're actually two way different skill sets. For one, business is about making profit for yourself and your shareholders. All right. So, I mean, that's it. In order to make that profit, you cut costs, you make sure to, make things that will sell, market trends and things like that. And in a lot of cases, unfortunately, you pay your workers as little as you can in order to make as much profit as you can. That's the nature of capitalism, right? So obviously, that's a big different skill set than doing public works. Public works was supposed to be, and often not, and often it doesn't work out that way either. But it's supposed to be where you help your community and you make decisions that are going to do for the betterment of all people, or the maximum amount of people that you can. Sometimes that involves, raising taxes to fund public works like public parks or things that might not be, or that might be in conflict with some of your local businesses. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't crossover knowledge that can apply between both, understanding how business works and things like that. But at the same time, it's not the same. Government is not a business. Business is not a government. They are two separate entities. Running one doesn't make you better at running the other. Okay. And so I hate the idea of, oh no, that's a business person. Obviously, they're going to be good at government. No, we saw that with Donald Trump. That worked out incredibly badly. At least, for regular people, for corporations, they did fantastic under Donald Trump, at least for a while until he botched Corona. And so that's why 500,000 people, Americans, died. So, yeah. Anyway, Garcia rips into her. Again, this is a former voter. All right. This voter said this. She has been so terribly disappointing. I am humiliated and embarrassed when she speaks on the House floor. She screams all the time and seems to have affiliated herself with white supremacists. She seems to have allied with white supremacists. Who's going to tell him that that's exactly what she is? She's white supremacist. The conservative movement, by the way, has been allied with the white supremacy the whole time. I mean, what do you think they're trying to conserve? Their money? Sure. Power? Of course. Social status? Absolutely. Social structure? Yes. Look, when somebody says traditional values, what do you think? What do you think they're talking about? That's the traditional value. It's code for white men running things. And by the way, white men, straight white Christian men. So, and of course, the fact that Boebert is in office, a woman, obviously, but then immediately sides with Donald Trump, and then, of course, goes with the Trump agenda, goes with the anti-choice agenda, it sort of reinforces that point, because right now the party is essentially in thrall to a white actor who pretends to be a common person, but actually screws them over, like Ronald Reagan before him. So now Boebert seems like she might be in a little bit of trouble. A little bit of trouble. In fact, there's some polling here to back that up. In an April poll conducted and paid for by 3 Democratic-leaning firms, so caveat aside, okay, so, you know, maybe they oversampled or whatever, and it's a small sample size too. But caveats aside, it's a roughly pretty even split. 42% of Coloradans interviewed in the district said that she had a favorable view of Lauren Boebert, while 45% had reported a negative view. So that's pretty close. That means that, of course, it could go either way. Either they, you know, she could have a more favorable rating, which could mean her, you know, getting reelected during her next election, or she could lose. It really depends on a lot of different factors, like who's going to run against her. She so far got a couple of different people, you know, that are going to run a primary and claim to be for, you know, the working class, pro-working class. We don't know. But the choice, for me, I don't personally think that she's going to be in trouble. Honestly, yes, these are good anecdotes and these are good stories. And of course, they're generally right. She is an absolute embarrassment and she's a troll. But I think that she's going to get sent back to Congress anyway. Because unfortunately for many people, too many people, the reason that they sent her to Congress in the first place is the same reason that they're going to vote for her again. And that fact, and that reason, I should say, is basically because she owns the libs. That is her only job, her only purpose, and she continues to at least excel in that. Not getting anything done for the people, but just to be owning the libs, because that's what they love. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.